Good evening, Larchmont and Mamaroneck. It's Thursday, January 14th, and welcome to the 100th episode of The Local Live.
Former mayoral candidate and current member of the HCZMZ board, Clark Nuringer, is back in the headlines.
In the village of Mamaroneck, attempts are being made to enact a law further regulating the sale of pets associated with puppy mills.
No new large residential building projects in the village of Larchmont. The board approves a moratorium.
Mamaroneck school district parents say yes to a $9.3 million renovation to improve athletic facilities at Mamaroneck High School.
Who has been awarded the MLK Junior Award this year? Stay tuned.
What's trending online this week? Keep watching for In the Media.
Go Panthers! You do not want to miss our LMC-TV Varsity Sports Play of the Week.
Oscar-winning director and local resident Ang Lee is in the spotlight this week.
How do you want your community to look? With Residential Building Moratorium recently adopted in both the town of Mamaroneck and the village of Larchmont, it's time to hear your views on land use. Join the conversation in our live roundtable discussion.
Tonight, we have a special guest for our 100th episode, co-founder of The Local Live, Alina Suriel.
Hello, Larchmont and Mamaroneck. It's a pleasure to be back in the studio, bringing you what's up to date in your community. Without any further ado, let's get started. An ethics complaint over conflicts of interest filed 6 months ago by former Village of Mamaroneck trustee Andres Bermudez Hallstrom against Coastal Zone Management member Clark Nuringer was unanimously dismissed by the village's Board of Ethics in December. At this week's village board meeting, Nuringer announced the recently released decision, expressing concern that the ethics board had made this decision in December, but had only been mailed out this week by the village attorney. Nuringer went on to criticize the existing process.
If Mamaroneck is truly the friendly village, and citizen volunteers are its best asset, as repeatedly stated by the mayor, then it is unacceptable for citizens of this village to be subjected to out-of-control process without either procedural time constraints or consequences relating to submission of intentional, malicious, and vindictive fantasy allegations. Further, it is unacceptable to me that specious fictional allegations are permitted to be publicized.
Nuringer also requested that the board look at the law and clarify its safeguards for confidentiality.
The Board of Ethics may have concluded their work and closed their file on this matter, but this is far from over. The request that I respectfully submit to this board is that you review what is currently contained within the law, what is currently permitted as far as process, and do something to prevent the beating up of citizen volunteers of this village through specious allegations and the lack of control of anything having to do with confidentiality. If you can take an example from other boards and commissions in which they have limitations on their actions and have to act within a certain prescribed period of time. The Board of Ethics does not have such constraints, and I think that's patently unfair to anyone who a complaint is filed against. And I further request that although the law contains some language with respect to confidentiality, that you look at it and review it, because apparently it's
Bermudez Hallstrom provided a statement in response to Mr. Nuringer's comments on his website at themamaroneckinsider.com. During the same meeting, the Mamaroneck Village Board began addressing ongoing concerns about animal cruelty at local pet stores. This was sparked by the arrest of Richard Doyle, the former owner of Best Breeds Puppies and Kittens on Mamaroneck Avenue. Last July, both ethical and legal concerns were raised by board members and residents. The proposed regulatory actions includes permits, stricter health regulations, and/or an outright ban on sales for puppies from pets from puppy mills.
We have a high level of ethics to take care of people, pets and animals that are totally defenseless, and they didn't ask to be here.
Chicago, Illinois, Miami Beach, Florida. I mean, there are now some of these may be counties, some may be cities. I'm not sure, but 106 places have already banned them. That's number one that I wanted to say.
We invite everyone to come and look at it. I know there were problems in the past with that store, but it's a different owner now who is taking full responsibility and is planning on making it much safer.
Ultimately, the board set a public hearing on the matter for January 25th. At the same time, the Village of Larchmont held its much-anticipated public hearing regarding a temporary moratorium on several land use applications. As we previously reported, this comes on the heels of developers' plans to demolish a historic house in Larchmont at 40 Ocean Avenue. The proposed local law states that no entity shall review, accept, hold a hearing, or make a decision regarding subdivision, plan approval, and/or demolition permits. Let's take a listen at what some of the Larchmont residents have to say.
When any of us go to the town hall and we request a change to our house, we can be declined, an addition of a porch or something like that. Yet how does it happen that a whole house can be demolished and 4 houses be put up? It's just confusing to me how that happens.
Messages and feelings do not an evidence of a crisis or dire necessity make, and I therefore don't believe there's a basis for any sustainable moratorium.
These markers from previous generations passing are what make this village so very special. They should be treasured, not demolished to make room for faceless houses devoid of personality and absent of memories tugging us to past lives.
The Board of Trustees all voted in favor of the 6-month moratorium once the law is submitted to the Secretary of State. The law will immediately be placed into effect. The Mamaroneck School District approved a $9.3 million renovation to improve athletic facilities at Mamaroneck High School. There was an 87% pass rate that would allow the school to renovate locker rooms, reconfigure gym spaces, and redesign PE curriculum. The updates were much needed as they will assure a more adequate community evacuation shelter in the event of an emergency. The bond's approval also came as a response to continued concerns that the athletic facilities do not meet the needs of the more than 1,500 students enrolled in PE classes. Remember that LMC-TV records the entire proceedings of local municipal and school board meetings. You can access them online at www.lmctv.org. Martin Luther King celebrations have begun in our community. On January 9th, recipients K. Francis Richards and Clifford Wolf were awarded the 2016 Martin Luther King Jr. Award for their community involvement in various organizations and events, such as the Interfaith Council and organizing the post-terrorist memorial following the Charlie Hebdo attacks in Paris and the church murders in Charleston. The event was held at the Mamaroneck Public Library and hosted by the Human Rights Committee for Larchmont and Mamaroneck.
We give this award to K. Francis Richards. It says, "She lives the dream." Thank you. Please go.
In the meantime, I have the honor of presenting you with this little something, this token. It's a marker to be sure.
Whoa, it's heavy.
Along the way. It ain't heavy, you're my brother.
Very brief. Actually, I made sure that they did have their own day. So for Westchester County, it's really one of the greatest things as a representative of Westchester to say that we have citizens that really contribute so much to all of us here, that we will recognize them and have a day for each. So I believe, Kay, your day is going to be on January 9th, tomorrow. It will be proclaimed K. Francis Richards Day. Right. Cliff, your day is on the 10th. And if you go to the Westchester County Center tomorrow on the 9th, you on the 10th, you will see your name up in lights that in the background.
Now, telling us what articles are trending in the media this week, here is Rob Baez.
Last Thursday, yet another truck was wedged under the Metro North overpass. This time, it was a sewage truck that became victim of a criminally low overpass. Luckily, no one was hurt, and the truck was eventually pulled out. This story is from The Loop. One current Larchmont resident is doing pretty well for herself. Liz Whale has recently written her 12th book, The Newsmakers, a fiction novel about the cable news industry. Now, if the name sounds familiar, she works at Fox News and has made appearances on The O'Reilly Factor and Lou Dobbs Tonight. This story is from the Mamaroneck Patch, and you can also read the full Q&A at westchestermagazine.com. Last week on In the Media, I introduced a story about New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo proposing an idea to build a tunnel between Long Island and either the Bronx, Westchester County, or Connecticut. New York State Senator George Latimer believes that the tunnel will negatively impact Westchester County more than it will benefit Long Island. Traffic on I-287, as well as dislocation of shoreline residents, are the main reasons for Latimer's opposition. To read more, go to thepatch.com. Larchmont, Mamaroneck, Westchester County, New York State, and the entire country are all swept up in lottery fever. And why blame them? This week's Powerball jackpot will hit a record $1.5 billion. Now, although there haven't been any reported winners, bosses beware. For more information, visit LOHA Journal News. Well, that's it for this week's In the Media. I am Robert Baez, signing off.
There's certainly no shortage of stories that have come up this past week. First, with the Powerball reaching a staggering record of over $1.5 billion. And we have 3 confirmed winners so far.
As for local news, the village of Mamaroneck has witnessed not 1, but 2 instances of trucks colliding with the Metro North Bridge on Mamaroneck Avenue. Fortunately, no injuries were reported in either accident.
We're not done yet. First, we'll have this week's trivia question followed by a live roundtable discussion of the reaction to the new residential developments coming to our area. Stay tuned.
Two standstills on local residential land development in 2 municipalities in 1 month. We're going to talk about it. What's the effect of development on the community at large? Do you want more and newer housing stock? Do you want to preserve and protect our older homes? And are these aims mutually exclusive? As you heard earlier in the show, this week the Village of Larchmont Board voted to adopt a 6-month moratorium on applications for subdivisions, demolition permits, site plan approval, certain building permits, and variances. Recently, the town adopted a 3-month moratorium on major residential construction, which under current law are not subject to any site planning review. Although the moratoria are not identical, local concerns about these bursts in large-scale projects involving teardowns in larger homes are in fact similar. The town's data shows that in the last 3 years, there have been 19 teardowns, far more than in the prior years. And Larchmont Village Mayor Ann McAndrews cited an increase in applications to divide, apportion, and subdivide, as well as teardowns for additional and/or larger homes. I'm Maura Carlin. Joining me tonight are 2 residents who've spoken at their respective municipal meetings regarding moratoria. Stacy Caffrey of Larchmont Village lives near the proposed 40 Ocean Avenue subdivision and is a member of the group Preserve Larchmont. Lori Kupferberg spoke at the town hearing about the effects of a teardown and large-scale project near her. Ladies, thank you for joining us. As always, though, we do want to hear from you, our viewers. Call, email, or tweet to the information on your screen. What do you think the landscape and housing should be? How, if at all, should land use laws be changed, and what should be considered? Stacy, I'm going to start with you. Since you have an organization now, what's the mission of Preserve Larchmont?
We simply want to preserve, as the title says, we want to preserve the charm and character of Larchmont as it is. We all moved here for that reason. We all, we live in old homes that require a lot of care, but we do it as an act of love because we truly love our village. And we want to, we all want to be able to modernize and maintain our homes as need be, but we don't want to see them destroyed and have the village filled with sort of cookie cutter, soulless architecture.
So what is it that you've seen lately, or what energized you to action that concerns you and your organization?
Well, I think we'd all seen, over the last year or so, home torn down and 2 put in its place here, another one there, sort of kind of random and happenstance, and nothing really enough to irritate a lot of people. But when the 40 Ocean project was announced, it really galvanized the town. It brought a group of almost 1,000 people together as a tipping point against this kind of development, and enough people saying, enough, this is not what we want for our village.
Is the organization targeted at a particular project?
Not at all. It is about the entire town, and I tell friends and neighbors all the time, really, it doesn't matter where you live, because it could be you. It could be next door to you, and if, as you walk through the village and look around, you think, well, my gosh, if they can tear down this one, why not that one? Or why not that one? Well, how do you choose? How do you decide? So, no, it's all of us. It's the entire village and town, quite frankly. I think it's the charm is why we all live here. If we wanted to live in cookie-cutter subdivisions, we would have moved to them.
Lori, I want to pull you in here because I want to hear about your experience being from the town and your concerns.
Well, first of all, I have to second what Stacy said, because we all did move here for the quaint town or village on the Sound, and we wanted this type of architectural landscape. And as I drive around my neighborhood or other neighborhoods, I see one enormous house next to what used to be a good-sized house, and now it looks tiny.
I am going to have to stop you because we actually already have a caller. So, caller, are you there? Speak up, please, caller.
Yes, hi there.
Go ahead.
I want to applaud both these ladies for the work they're doing in their community, and I sincerely hope that the residents of the village of Mamaroneck also recognize that we are in dire need of a moratorium here as well. Similar issues, but other issues having to do with a glut of housing units and the potential destruction of the community that we all cherish. This is a coastal community, and under the direction of the current administration, we are fast becoming a city.
Okay, thank you for your call. And we received actually another email with a similar sentiment. Lori, I know I cut you off, so tell me about your experience.
Well, we are currently living next door to a project. We live on a very small dead-end street, and I don't believe that the infrastructure can handle what goes on when a house is torn down, when a new larger house is put up, when there's all sorts of rock chipping, which as a result, I have my new piece from my oil tank, which was only 2 years old, that cracked. I have a crack in my granite in my kitchen. I had a cracked gas line.
And all of this was caused by what?
Ground vibrations.
From this project
From
near
the
you.
project that was right next door. And what I've told the people, the pool company that was doing the chipping, is that in Larchmont, and one of the reasons why we moved here, we measure our yards in feet, not in acres. So when they're used to drilling up in Bedford, say, where there's 3 or 4 acre pieces of property, it's a whole different ballgame. I mean, our house was vibrating and we suffered significant damage. What concerns me is not just this one project. I mean, we were greatly affected, but that really, as the neighbor, there is no say. In the town of Mamaroneck, because they met all the zoning requirements, we did not see a plan. We were not invited to view anything, and I think that that's where the change needs to be.
And as a point of background, I should just point out that in the town of Mamaroneck, if you have the right to do it, there's no oversight board.
Correct.
And that is one of the things being considered during the moratorium by the town. And I gather from what you've said, you support that site planning for a large residential project.
Absolutely. And I also think that the town needs to be more involved in these projects, because you really have nowhere to turn as the neighbor to get help. And like I said, we did suffer no gas for 5 days, no oil for 5 days. So, not insignificant.
Okay. What about you, Stacy? What would you like to see come out of the village's moratorium?
So, other than the big picture which I described, then becomes more complicated. What is it? We all know what we don't want, but it's more complicated to actually articulate what we do. And in fact, Right now, we're all looking at other municipalities' zoning laws and trying to figure out what is it really, if we could design and draft what we would like the village to think of as our zoning laws, we're trying to think about what that might be. And, you know, I took, I've used my picture before, but I'll use it one more time. This is a map of Larchmont Manor.
Okay, can you guys get that with the camera?
Okay, and it's a big chunk of Larchmont Manor. What I did, it's a very time-consuming process to do, so I didn't do all of it, but I took all the area.
Just hold it straight so the
area
camera can
that's
zoom
colored
in on
in
it.
yellow is the part that I did. It encompasses, I think, 337 homes. All I did was take the size of the lot and what it's zoned for in terms of how many houses they could put there. And in this area of 337 homes alone, just this tiny little chunk of our town, our village, you could add another 41 under our current zoning laws. 41. That's it's 12.2% increase. It's a humongous number. It's a dire, dire problem. So in terms of revisiting the zoning laws, we need to figure out, is this the right size lots? Do we need, I mean, part of it is just the actual zoning. Zoning in Larchmont is based upon lot size, how many homes you can have on it. But do we also need to look at setbacks? Do we need to look at other things that constrain how much house we can put per land? Because we are at capacity, I believe, in terms of what our sewers can handle, what our water runoff issues, environmental issues, not to mention our schools. We just can't fit any more children.
So having heard our caller talk about concerns in the village of Mamaroneck, is this an opportunity for all the municipalities to talk about this at the same time?
Why we would be more powerful if we all bonded together. Absolutely. I mean, we probably all want similar things. So to me, why not?
Okay. I'm going to, Stacy, to someone who was watching the municipal meetings, particularly the Village of Larchmont one, but the town one also, and by the way, they can be seen on LMC-TV from the website. It looks like it's residents against developers. Is that the case? Or another way of putting it, outsiders against locals?
I don't think it's outsiders against locals. I mean, I think one of the beautiful things about Larchmont is it attracts new families all the time. We are very welcoming of new families, and we want new life in the community. But it's certainly, we want people who want to be in Larchmont, not people who want to live, I'm not going to pick on a suburb, but not people who want to live in a cookie-cutter suburb. So if you're here because you love it, because you love the charm, because you love the park, because you love wandering around the streets and seeing the houses, because you want to see your neighbors, because you want to interact with your neighbors, all the things we love, because you want to walk to and from school, all of that. If you're here for that, then yes, we absolutely welcome you. But if you want to come in and destroy what's Larchmont, then actually no, I don't want you. We don't want you here.
I also don't think it's the right town for you.
Correct.
I mean, there are plenty of other towns that are in good distance, commuting distance to the city as well.
Have there been any discussions about why so many developers seem to be coming in the very recent years?
I don't know that I've heard any discussion as to why. I guess it's simple. It's for developers, it's a business decision. They say that they can make a profit.
But I also don't think it's necessarily only the developers. I think it's local people. I mean, on the end of our street, it's a Larchmont upgrade. They moved from literally down the street to this big house on the corner. I think people are buying smaller houses and are either gutting them and doing huge additions or knocking them down themselves as well.
So for you, I actually want to ask you about the opposite of subdividing, which I know is one of the big issues, but annexing properties to get a larger property. Should this be addressed in new laws?
Most definitely.
What are the concerns?
Okay, there are many concerns. You can take two properties, adjoin them. When you take, from what I understand, when you take the two properties and adjoin them, it's one big piece of property. However, the property that was there to begin with is still there in its same right. So you have grading problems, you have drainage issues, so I think that you really need to be concerned with looking at each parcel before they're adjoined to get approval, as opposed to looking at the whole entire piece of property.
It sounds like you want a more global look, that not just looking at that one piece of property, but rather how it sits within the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, if this was a property on its own right prior to this, would this project have been passed? And I think in a lot of instances, the answer would probably be no.
Can you give more examples about how some of these projects change the character of a neighborhood beyond, a different looking house?
I mean, I think certainly where I live, that is the crux of the matter, because, if you look out, I don't care how cold or wet or dry or sunny or beautiful it is, people walk in Larchmont Manor. That's part of it. It's sort of a living, a living environmental. I don't know how to describe it. It's the beauty of the natural landscape combined with the beauty of the homes, and people love to walk the neighborhood.
Even people not from that neighborhood.
Correct. And we had, someone made a good point, I thought, the other night, that some of the businesses in Larchmont benefit from people from other towns coming, parking their car, they go for a long walk, they get some lunch, they have a cup of coffee, they stop in CVS, whatever it is. It is an attraction. Larchmont was founded in the 1870s, incorporated in 1892, but the founders put that, I believe it's 14 acres that's Manor Park, they set that aside so that everyone who's zoned in this map I was showing you, everyone who owns a piece of property in that has deeded access to that park. They did it purposefully. They didn't sell off the most beautiful chunks to the highest bidder, but they wanted everyone to be able to enjoy it. And that's what the town is about.
And that's what you're trying to preserve.
Correct.
One of the concerns I've heard spoken about by people is what seems to be happening is older homes, people not finding value in older homes, and everyone wanting new stock. Is that what I know that there were some realtors who spoke at the meeting, but they didn't seem to express that sentiment. Have you heard that?
Sure, I think there are people who would prefer, who don't want the headache and hassle of an old house, and it is a headache and a hassle. I live in a house that was built as a summer cottage in 1884. Right? It wasn't built for what we live in it for. It wasn't built, over the years. You really are a custodian of these things and a caretaker. And some of the money that you see flying out your windows and out your doors and out your, the walls that leak and et cetera. But would it be easier in some capacities to live in a new home? Sure. But would it be anywhere near as pleasant or interesting? Not in the slightest.
Again, this goes to the kind of community you want to live in.
Absolutely.
And again, everyone, we want to hear from you. We've got a few minutes left, so it's your chance to call, email, tweet. We're ready for you. Others have said this is just people don't like change. How do you respond to that?
I don't buy into it. I mean, I don't like change for what I would consider the worst. I feel like we've been living here for 23 years. I moved here because I absolutely fell in love with Larchmont. I don't want to live next to, a big kind of McMansion. I love the way the village is. We live on the other side of town. We always walk to Manor Park, and because it's so beautiful. And that's, I think, why we want to preserve it the way it is.
I don't think people have any, some people like change less than others. Certainly that's human nature. But this isn't about change. Again, I have no issue. We renovated our house. I have no issue with, and people, you need to. You can't live in these old homes and not take care of them because they require that. But so change can be a good thing, but it needs to be the right kind of change. You don't just to come in and if you think about the old growth trees that are going to be torn down, and it's morally questionable.
How would you suggest that the village deal with the flip side of the argument that, we should have the right to use our land as we wish. We bought it, we paid for it, it's ours. I mean, is that the balancing?
Yes, that is the balancing. And ultimately that's going to be the test as we move forward over the next few months to the community and the trustees and the mayor to try to craft what the laws should be and how you balance the individual rights of the homeowner versus the rights of the community as a whole.
From the village meeting, Preserve Larchmont sort of asked for a seat at the table as the laws being considered, drafted. Do you have ideas at this point of what you'd like to see?
We're really just at this planning stage. We were so thrilled that the moratorium passed the other night, and we all just took a deep breath. And now I think we, in conjunction with the legal team, are going to try to, again, go through the zoning laws of other municipalities and try to determine what might make the most sense for us to hope for in our own community.
Okay, well, believe it or not, we are already out of time. Remember, you out there can watch the town and Larchmont meetings on LMC-TV, and you will be able to participate in the municipality's public hearings when they are scheduled. I want to thank our guests, Stacy Caffrey of Preserve Larchmont and town resident Lori Kupferberg. We're glad you joined us for our 100th, and my hip-hopping co-host Mike Witch was sorry to miss this. No, he did not win the Powerball. He recently got himself a new hip and will be out for several weeks. We wish him a speedy recovery and miss him. Stay tuned for more community stories and the answer to the trivia question.
This week in sports, the Rhinebeck boys basketball team trailed heading into the second half of a game against Hastings. On the opening possession of the half, junior Cole Lewis kept his poise with the shot clock winding down in the LMC Varsity Sports Play of the Week.
Kaplan did not hit the rim on the layup, so 8 seconds, and good pass by Lewis, but too tough to handle. They got 4 seconds. Lewis has to shoot it. He'll get it up, and it'll be good at the buzzer of the shot clock, and it was a 3. Cole Lewis with 9 of Rhinebeck's 13 points.
Did you know that one of Hollywood's most famous directors lives in our neck of the woods? Does Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon ring a bell? Today, we'll learn more about the life of our notable neighbor, Ang Lee. Kat Galliano has the story.
The Larchmont Mamaroneck Center for Continuing Education allowed us a sneak peek into the life of director Ang Lee and his remarkable film career. Today we will learn what it really took for him to become the world-renowned director that he is. As a child, Ang Lee felt like he didn't quite fit in, but when he discovered the arts, he discovered his purpose.
All my life I feel like an outsider, and I started to feel home about being an outsider. In some ways, I guess I create the movie world. That's kind of my nation. That's something I really can trust, and I can live in, and feel have a good sense of belonging.
The director's journey from Taiwan to Hollywood has been nothing short of inspiring. He couldn't even speak proper English when he landed his first big-budget film, Sense and Sensibility, based off the Jane Austen novel.
To be honest, when I directed Sense and Sensibility, I spoke pidgin English. It was like words. I couldn't speak fluent once complete sentences. And that was so encouraging to me. If somebody like that could direct that movie, I can do anything.
The event was moderated by Dr. Michael DeGennaro, who even taught both of the director's sons while they attended Mamaroneck High School. He recalled a funny moment that happened during one of his lessons.
But he was told not to ask you, because the idea was, well, what is the director's intent? I guess the lesson I have to learn is never, ever teach the work of a living artist whose kids are in your class.
Throughout his impressive career, one movie stands out among the rest. Brokeback Mountain swept the Oscars and America in 2005. It had an almost perfect timing with the rise of the LGBT movement.
And then somehow that works. And I think you're right. The timing was very right, but that's by chance, not through, because I have a purpose behind it. I just want to tell a poignant love story because it really moved me. Sometimes that's the best thing. You cannot really plan those things.
Ang Lee reminds us that with passion and perseverance, you can accomplish anything. After all the ups and downs in his path to success, he has finally found himself in his creative mindset.
Your praise to my movie, that's very flattering, but that's not what I'm experiencing or what I'm thinking when I make movies. I have a lot of curiosities with the world, with myself, with my actors, or whoever in my hands, or the cinematographer or sceneries. I want to put them together in this way or that way, And when I see people react to it, that's the most marvelous thing. I don't feel lonely. I don't feel that lonely, shy child when I was in high school. I feel like we're together, we're touching each other in a different level.
For the Local Live, this is Kat Galliano.
You're watching The Local Live,
the only news show on Larchmont and Mamaroneck on LMC-TV.
Lucky Charm Jinx is looking for a friendly home with lots of love. He craves attention. This senior coming from the Bronx loves companionship. After a very busy life, Jinx is not only used to an active household, but also to other cats, dogs, and children. Make sure to go to www.ny-petrescue.org.
If you'd like to keep watching us on the air, support us by checking out our website at www.lmctv.org. We really appreciate any contribution. We're always welcoming new interns and volunteers, so send your emails and resumes to thelocallive@lmctv.org and join us. We love hearing from you.
Again, we would like to thank all of our wonderful volunteers and viewers for making the 100th episode possible. Tomorrow, Friday the 15th, we're celebrating the new year, the 100th episode, and our recent award all-in-one at the Homics Ice Rink. Please email ccarino@lmctv.org for more information. And also tune in for next week because we'll be talking about parking in the village of Mamaroneck. I'm Kat Galliano.
And I'm Melina Suriel. Have a wonderful Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Can the Local Live give my pet ostrich the power of human speech?